think I recall that during Attorney Johnson's direct examination of you, you guys got into a discussion about the consequences of some of Dr. Gosselin's actions. And one of the questions, or one of the consequences I believe you identified, was that unvaccinated, these healthcare workers with these exemption letters were going back into the hospital environment, and that was dangerous. Am I paraphrasing correctly?
Yes.
Help me with that, because from my perspective, here you've got healthcare workers that have these vaccine exemption letters, and those letters are almost like a spotlight on them, because they've got to go to their hospital administrator, their Mr. Diaz, I understand, at Maine General, who's enforcing these rules over there, and they have to declare themselves as unvaccinated. And they have to say, here I am, I'm not vaccinated, and here's why I don't think I should be. Now, I don't understand what can possibly be dangerous about that when they're alerting the administration of the hospital to the fact that they are unvaccinated, giving the administration the opportunity to do whatever they want to with them. Fire them, isolate them, reassign them, move patients around. That part I'm having trouble understanding, how they represent a danger to anybody in that scenario.
Is there a question in your statement?
I'm asking you to help me understand it. Why is it that they're a danger? Can you explain it to me?
And we need to hold up for Ms. Vos.
I'm going to repeat my question if she didn't hear that.
I would ask if you can maybe make the questions more concise, because they are quite long and involve a lot of content. Okay, she's back. And Board Member Vos, did you hear Attorney Jenkins' question, or should we return to the beginning of that?
I heard the question.
Okay, great. So, Ms. Brandt, if you're Dr. Brandt, if you're able to answer, please go ahead.
So I think there's a lot to unpack in there. So the short answer, I guess, would be it depends. There is a set of accommodations, right? So I think what you're implying, again, is that it is the administration of the employer's choice whether to honor the letter of exemption.
Are you asking me? I'm not implying it, I'm saying it. I think that's the reality. Is that not correct?
Well, I think that's where they go. So it comes through. So in the situation of therefore not being fired, that prevents harm that they could bring to the hospital environment. I'm not sure that's really getting at your point.
No, that's okay. I can move on to another question.
Right, I think.
So I have to ask another question. So we've been discussing this whole time the standard applicable to vaccine exemptions. But I'd like to turn for a moment to the standard applicable to vaccination, a decision to vaccinate. Is it the same standard? Is it the same process for decision making that must be observed when one is being vaccinated?
Yes.
Well, why is it that I could go down to Walmart tomorrow and get vaccinated with a COVID-19 vaccine without any of those protocols and procedures, soaps, etc., being implemented?
They are walking through a shortened version of those steps. So if you sign up to get vaccinated at a pharmacy, they ask a medical history. They ask you questions of whether you have had an allergic reaction to previous vaccines. You then meet with a pharmacist who does a brief assessment. You receive an informed consent document consenting to the vaccine. You then receive the vaccine if it's indicated and there are no contraindications, and then you have to hang around for 15 minutes to be observed.
So the CDC guidelines for medical exemptions and contraindications, they specify that am I correct that the only contraindication listed there is anaphylactic reaction?
Yes.
And
severe allergy, which they give the most common examples.
Okay. And it's an anaphylactic reaction to the vaccine itself, correct?
Or the components thereof.
So effectively, you must have taken the vaccine and had a severe allergic reaction, which could be fatal, in order to establish that you qualify for a medical exemption, according to the CDC.
Yes.
Is that your position as an osteopath as well?
I think that is the only contraindication to the vaccine. Where we start getting into straying from the CDC guidance is around precautions and some of the conditions in which we talk about. I believe Attorney Johnson said being given pause. And those are the situations in which you need to make an individual medical assessment.
Oh, you may have heard me in my opening statement referring to the VAERS database.
Yes.
Yeah. And I mentioned a bunch of statistics there.
Sorry, we lost Miss Rose.
Jesus.
Oh, did we lose somebody?
Yep, we lost Miss Rose, but she's back, so you can continue.
How many times is this going to happen?
So as we've already gone over, she's having difficulty with her
Okay, well.
internet, and she's returning as soon as she can, and we're
Okay, all right.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you to mute since you're not needing to answer questions right now.
My apologies. I did switch computers and trying, and it seems to be just our internet overall.
Yeah, that's no problem. We wait for you to return each time, and it's fine. So Attorney Jenkins, I'm gonna ask you to start over with your question.
Yes. We were just remembering in my opening statement, I had discussed VAERS, the VAERS Federal Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System. And I mentioned some statistics. Now, I'm not asking you to agree that those statistics are accurate, but just assume that they are for the purposes of my question. And my question is, with those statistics, do you agree with me that if they're accurate, they constitute a signal from the system that there could be a problem with these vaccines?
No.
Okay, and why is that?
I think it's more complicated than that.
Okay. And can you explain the complication?
So this is a process that goes on with any new medication. There are many layers of clinical trial that go on, and there is, they go through stages 1, 2, 3. We don't need to get into that for these purposes, but those are levels of trial that go on prior to medications or vaccines reaching the market. There is then essentially stage 4, which is observation that goes on after market. There has been very intense scrutiny of effects and side effects of these vaccines as there is for any vaccines. As you discussed, that was the process that eventually caused the original rotavirus vaccine to be pulled from the market. This is how this procedure works. And my assessment of the side effects and adverse events that have come through the VAERS system reflect real events, but given the volume of vaccine that is being done and the risk-benefit analysis to now favors use of these vaccines.
Okay. Well, you mentioned the rotavirus vaccine. In that case, there were only 15, and the rotavirus vaccine was pulled off of the market in 1989 because of 15 adverse events reported in the VAERS system of that condition that we were discussing where the intestine folds in on itself, just 15 of them. So that apparently was a signal. Would you agree with me? That 15?
That's a different risk. That's a different calculus, right? You can't compare the wrong numbers. You have to look at the whole context.
Okay.
So you have to look at, these are infants. You have to look at the morbidity, right? The effects that are caused to infants by rotavirus compared to the side effects of the vaccine to prevent that illness, as well as the efficacy. So all the same elements are going into that calculus, but the calculus comes out differently.
Okay. Well, I just want to thank you for your patience and for the conversation we've had. I've actually enjoyed it. I think it was productive, and I hope it was helpful to the board in their decision-making process. Thank you.